Well, folks, it's the Down and Dirty. I'm Scott Mitchell here on ESPN 792.1 FM. We are so proud to be a part of the Utah ESPN radio network. So happy to bring the show to you. It's Monday. Oh boy, it's going to be a fun day. Crazy, crazy weekend of good, bad, ugly, and all that fun stuff in between. Is there anything in between good, bad, and ugly? Semi sweet, is it milk chocolate,
Average?
dark
It would be
chocolate?
average, probably, wouldn't it?
Average, yes. Good, bad, ugly, and average. Well, there's nothing average about you, Martin. No, no, no. You're not average.
Not at all. I know that.
No, you're special. That's Martin Kelly. He's my fabulous producer. Anyways, welcome to the show. If you missed a part of it, do that technology thing. Apis.comus. That's ESPN 7 Sports. So we'd love to hear from you, and we really would. But we got a fun show today. There was a big game in the conference. There was some big moves, and it's just getting more and more defined. Now, the more it gets defined, the more murky it gets. We're going to dive into all the possible scenarios of what might happen here. A bunch of folks passed away, unfortunately. Some big names in sports. We'll talk about them. Of course, the NFL still rolling along, doing pretty good on my picks. We'll review that today as well. And someone's yelling out, "Show me the money." Now, Martin doesn't know where that comes from. Show me the money. That's from Jerry Maguire. Remember, we had our fun thing on last weekend or last Friday, and well, I don't know if we did it on the show. We may have done it on the other show. Anyways, hey, and by the way, I do another show. I do another show, which is actually on the Fan 103.9 That's from 11, or I'm sorry, from 1 to 2. So we're here from 10 to 11, there from 1 to 2. Go check it out. We're actually going to be in a lot of other places pretty soon. So there's no excuse. Okay. The big game in college football over the weekend was Texas Tech and BYU. And it's an interesting game to watch. And it's interesting to watch because Texas Tech is just they're so different in the way they win games. It's almost like they put a frog in a pot of boiling water and it just sits there. And you just slowly are being boiled to death by Texas Tech. Or it's just kind of that python that just kind of wraps itself around you, and it's nothing, it isn't all at once, it isn't everywhere, and then the next thing you know, you're like, "Holy cow. We just got our butts whooped." But in a very genteel and very subtle way. It was very similar to how Utah lost. You think of Utah moving the ball down the field and then having turnovers, two fumbles, and then the really bad misses, the one touchdown that was called back, and the next thing you know, this game that was, could have easily gone another direction doesn't. And you just see Texas Tech doing this over and over. You saw them do it against Kansas State. You've seen them do it against so many teams. In fact, it took a Herculean effort from Sam Levitt at ASU to beat this team. Texas Tech's a very good football team. They're a team that, it's funny where they have this tradition, they're just wide open offense, and they just throw the ball all over the field, and it goes back to Mike Leach and all that stuff. And it's just, whoa, yes, here we go. And now it's like, you know what? We're going to go out and buy a defense. And it's fascinating, the story of how they bought their defense. And it's something that I think is it's a case study. It's something, because it's not like, well, we just went in the portal, we just grabbed a bunch of guys that, we needed. They were really specific about guys. They were about ranking guys. They were about, this guy really fits in here. And not only did they fit him in there, they paid him. Like, they paid them to the tune of $7 million for their defensive line. And it's paid off handsomely. And but it's also so you get the right types of players, but you also get the right type of chemistry and really understanding kind of who you are and how they fit in it. And I think that's the biggest lesson to learn in this new age of essentially free agency or NIL, whatever you want to call it, professionalism of college football. It's so important. I think it's beyond important. The teams that scout well, and that's really what you're doing. You're scouting. I don't, you don't. It's not recruiting anymore. It's scouting, and because the recruitment's money. Like you don't have to, it's not like um, let us wine and dine you and all this and all that's nice and everything, but it's all the recruitment is money. First question out of every recruit's mouth. So here's Texas Tech, and I'm going to get into some scenarios here, but I really want to talk a little bit about what they're doing because I think it's really important, and I think it's really different. Because you look at Colorado, and you look at some of these other places, Miami spent a lot of money, and I'm not sure that they got the same vibe going on in Miami, and maybe not the best players. I mean, um, it's one thing to get a player; it's another thing to get a player that's really good and pans out really well. And I think that's the to me that's the secret sauce is you look at what Ohio State did and who they got, and they got Will Brown, and he ends up winning a national championship for him, and it was a good pick. But then you have Quinn Ewers, and he goes to Texas, and is Quinn Ewers really no, and so it's really and it's like now Cam Ward, I thought was a good pick for Miami, but it's so much, and then you look at Colorado. And there is an attraction there. Like Dion moves the needle, but I don't think they know who they are. I really don't. I don't think they. It's like, well, I'll come in here and I'm Dion, and I'm just gonna bring people here because I was the greatest defensive back in the world, and I'm an even greater promoter of myself, and it's like, I'm gonna will you with my persona into greatness. That's the whole thing. Like you're gonna do things the Dion way, and it hasn't worked. So he goes, well, but I'm gonna get good coordinators in here to really coach you up because I don't know how much I'm really coaching you. Like I'm the big picture. I'm the motivational guy. I have all the quotes. I'm gonna get your mind right. And he goes, but then I'm gonna go attract some big names. Like you're being coached by Hall of Famers, and Warren Sapp and Marshall Falk and myself. And by the way, I'd pick any one of those three as my first player I picked on a team. So it's not working. But what they're doing at Texas Tech is. And it was one of those things we said at the beginning of the year. Well, let's see what this experiments does this pan out? And the answer is absolutely yes. If you want to get boiled by a frog and you want to jump into that mess, that's where you're headed with Texas because they bought into this. They all of a sudden got these players in, and quite frankly, I think it was beating Utah that really kind of set them in a different direction. They go, wait a minute, okay, because it was first conference win. They didn't really know who they had or what they were. They were kind of blowing all their non-conference people away. Then they got into a tough game with Utah, lost their starting quarterback, and they still won. And then they've just built on it. And they're doing something there, and it's about how they go about picking players and how they fit into the program. And they've had a couple of guys get injured, but they're still doing well. And then it's the other players in the program really meshing around this. And I think you're starting to see that at the University of Utah a little bit. Because it takes a bit of time to let that kind of marinate and let it gel. And I personally think spring football becomes massively important now, more so I think than ever. Like you got to bring these new guys in, and you got to try to get them up to speed as much as you possibly can. And the same thing in the fall. So it's fascinating. So now where are we? And the first uh, college football poll came out, and Utah's 13, which was beyond I think anyone's expectation. I don't think anyone thought Utah would be there, and it's huge to be there because basically you're standing at the door and you're just waiting for the casualties to fall, and they're going to fall. I'm going to walk through some of what's going to fall, and it almost is 100% guaranteed it's going to fall. And they're at the bottom of the 12 team ranking are a bunch of 2-loss teams. And there's also some pretenders in there. Okay, sorry, Martin. Notre Dame, I'm not sure is a contender yet. They're Notre Dame. They have respect. I think it's the same thing with Utah. I think Utah has the conference or the college football selection committee's attention and respect. That's why they're at 13. But there's a bunch of other teams. So there's Texas. There's really Texas, Oklahoma, Notre Dame, Oregon, and Ole Miss. Now, Ole Miss has a really easy schedule. I think they may play. LSU is kind of, it's talent. It's just a hot mess right now. It's just a hot mess. So, and I think LSU is a pretender. LSU has not played anyone. I'm not LSU, but Ole Miss. Ole Miss has not played anybody. Nobody. And the only team they played this year was, okay, they beat Oklahoma. I'm not sure Oklahoma's very good. They lost to Georgia, but that's it. And that's about all they'll play all year. They played the Citadel last weekend. And I don't even know how you say that with a straight face. I really don't. But here's the 2 lost teams. There's Texas, Oklahoma, Notre Dame. And now you have BYU, who has 1 loss. You have Oregon, who has 1 loss, who barely won against Iowa. It was a close game. And here sits Utah. And all these teams are above them. Oklahoma's 12, Texas is 11, Notre Dame is 10. 9 was Texas Tech. 8 was Oregon, and 7 was BYU. So Texas Tech is going to move up. In my opinion, Texas Tech should go all the way to 4. They just should. And I know there's this whole Georgia, Alabama always have to be in there. Alabama's only had 1 loss. Alabama's number 4 right now, but I would not be surprised. Texas Tech will not lose another game this year. They got an easy schedule the rest of the way. So they're not going to lose. They are going to win out. They're going to have 1 loss on the year, and they're going to be they'll be that 4th team. And of course, the best thing for the conference is for BYU to continue to win. And the only reason is because it just makes the conference look stronger. And really what it makes it look like is the Big 12 has 3 really seriously contending teams. Texas Tech, BYU, and Utah. So the scenarios are this. There's really 2 scenarios for Utah. The one scenario is you get in as an at-large. And the other scenario is you hope for a couple of losses. Now, BYU plays Cincinnati, and then they have Texas Christian, TCU, and they have UCF. Now, they have Texas Christian, UCF at home, Cincinnati on the road. The Cincinnati game is in a week. Now, you might say this could be a massive letdown game for BYU, this Texas Christian game, because they've been competitive. They're kind of middle of the road. I think they have 3 losses in the conference. They're like 3-3. They're kind of, 5-4 on the year. They're a middle of the road team, but could beat you if you let the loss from the week before. Because I think this was a major, major letdown for BYU. In fact, I think there was this. Well, we hope we can win at Texas Tech, but I think everyone thought we're not going to win. I think if you really ask a BYU fan, I think in their heart of hearts they go, we're not going to win. We're not going to win this week. And Bear Bachmeyer looked like a freshman, and really had some mistakes that have not been present thus far in the season. So you could end up with BYU have the so I think that the conference needs BYU to win for the playoffs. And I think if that happens and Utah wins, I think you'll have 3 teams in the playoffs. And I'll explain that. But the other scenario is the losses. So if BYU loses to Cincinnati, they're still ahead of Utah. But then if Cincinnati loses another game and they play Arizona, BYU, and TCU, they're going to have 2 losses. So you're going to have Cincinnati, BYU, Utah, ASU, and Houston all with 2 losses. It's like 5 teams with 2 losses. And that may be the best scenario to get Utah in the conference championship. And it's a weird tiebreaker. And I think there's a program you can go to. I haven't done it, but I think it puts Utah there. Now, it's hard though. I mean, because you really are asking Cincinnati to lose, because I don't see Cincinnati or BYU losing 2 games. Like, it would just be very clear cut. Utah would get into the conference championship if Cincinnati lost 2 and BYU lost 2. I don't think it's a likely scenario. I think a 5-team round robin tiebreaker is a headache, and it may or may not get Utah in. But let's say it does. I'm not really thrilled to go in to the conference championship against Texas. I think you can beat. I think Utah can beat Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech is a very good football team, but I think they're beatable. I think a lot of teams in the playoffs are beatable. There's a couple. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about Ohio State. I'm not sure about Indiana. Maybe Alabama. Those are Texas A&M. They look pretty good. But everyone else, and on a given day, you might be able to beat them. So to me, going the conference championship route and winning the conference championship, I think is the scariest, most unlikely, because you still have to win the game. And if you lose the game, you're out. So the scenario I love is the at-large, and I think it's more realistic because you have Texas, Oklahoma, Notre Dame, all with 2 losses right now ahead of Utah. Texas A&M plays Georgia, who's 5, Texas A&M, who is 3. They're at least going to lose one of those games, and probably both. So they're out. So you're now in if you're Utah. Now you have Oklahoma, who plays Alabama, who's 4, Missouri, who's 22, and then LSU, who's a hot mess. So there's a real likelihood that Oklahoma is going to lose one more game. Now Notre Dame plays Pitt, who's 24, and Pitt's pretty decent. And I believe the game's at Pitt. So there's another potential loss there. And you could really move up to at least 10. Now, there's a possibility that Ole Miss loses again, and I think you would go past Ole Miss if you're Utah, because really you want to get to 8. And if you can find a way to get to 8 now, and I think the path to 8 is Oregon. And Oregon is going to play Minnesota, USC, and Washington. And there's USC looks a lot better, and USC might be better than them. And then Oregon, Washington's always a good game. And then of course BYU. Now I've said that I would love for I don't love for this, but for the sake of the conference, it's better if BYU wins. The sake for Utah getting um in the at large way is for BYU to lose. It just moves. It's going to move Utah up further, and you want to get to 8 because you get to 8 and you have a home. You have a home playoff game, and maybe the conference is 2 teams. Maybe it is. It's just going to be how BYU finishes out the season. Now Cincinnati's interesting because Cincinnati could beat BYU. Their only one loss is to Utah. They go into the conference championship game and they beat Texas Tech. That's the worst case scenario for the conference, and in a lot of ways, it's probably the worst case scenario for Utah because it would move Cincinnati. It would move them up the board significantly. Could they get? I think they're in the coaches poll this week. I don't think they're ranked in the playoff poll, but I think they're like 22 or something now. And that would be a bad case, But my likely scenario is I think BYU will lose to Cincinnati. And I think Cincinnati will play Texas Tech in this championship game, and I think Cincinnati will lose that game. And so it really throws a wrench in it, but I think it puts Utah in a very safe place. Now, why I think it's better to go the non-conference route is you potentially could get yourself to New Year's Day, at least. So you don't go in your conference championship game, so you don't have to play that extra game. So you're playing a college football playoff game at home, 19th or 20th of December. And that's like playing the conference championship game now. So instead of going to it, you're just playing it, but you're playing it at home. So you're at your home, which is huge. And then you win that, and then you go to you go to New Year's Day. And you go to the quarterfinals on New Year's Day. And you're going to probably play someone like Alabama. But depending if you're 8, you're probably going to play someone like Alabama. And you're going to play in the Rose Bowl, the Fiesta Bowl, the Cotton Bowl, somewhere. And who knows on that day, right? So now you don't have to play the extra conference championship game. You got a home playoff game, and you get yourself all the way to New Year's Day. And then who knows? It's anyone's game at that point. The 2 teams that played for a national championship last year did not play in their conference championship game. And I actually think it's an advantage. I really do. I wouldn't be surprised if conference championship games go away. I really think, especially if they expand the playoffs, I think it just goes away. And they just take the top teams in the conference, and that's the end of it. I think the conference championship was actually part of generating more revenue when there were fewer games to play in the playoffs and there were only a couple of teams. I think it's people go, yeah, I don't know if I want to play in that game. And you want to be good enough to be bad enough not to play in that game is where you are. So it's fascinating to me, these scenarios, and it's fun. Like, it's very cool, and it will certainly define itself. But my prediction is Cincinnati, Texas Tech in the championship game, and it still could put BYU. I think if Cincinnati loses it, I still think BYU with 2 losses will find its way into the college football playoffs, which I don't think is a bad thing. All right, let's take a break. We come back. We've got a bunch of NFL stuff to get through.
We have Aaron from RGS Exterior Online.
But before we do that, we're going to talk to our good friends at RGS Exteriors. Aaron joins the program right now. Good morning. Happy Monday. How are you, Aaron?
I'm doing well, Scott. How are you?
Oh, man, I'm living the dream, and it's not a nightmare. And, of course, I'm talking to you, and that's always wonderful. And, I love what you guys do and I love how important it is to homeowners. So you have you find the very best products to put on people's houses. You guarantee it. But why I think it's so important, especially today, is people aren't moving. They're not selling their houses. They've got these crazy interest rates a few years ago, and interest rates went up, and they go, it would just be stupid to move to sell our house. But we've got to protect that investment. We've got to put stuff into our house, and putting siding or improving the exterior of your house is a great way to protect and improve the investment that you have.
Yeah, it's a really easy way to, like you said, protect it, keep it lasting, functioning for a lot longer time, keep it avoiding any leaks or damage that can happen by not maintaining and improving the exterior of your home. And also it's an investment. Your home is a item that you can put that money into that you'll get that money back down the road as you're investing into it.
You guys have been around for 5 generations. I kind of joke, of course, with you guys that you showed up with the pioneers, and you started when they started building houses. You started putting gutters and all kinds of exterior around those old adobe homes. Why is it so important for people to know that you've been in business longer than anyone in the exterior business here in Utah?
It just comes with a lot of expertise. We've been hanging and doing rain gutters for a very long time here in the state of Utah. We know what we're doing. We know how to get them right. It's something that seems very simple and kind of the last thing you think about on your house. But when you have a rain gutter go bad, it can cause a lot of problems. So let us come out and use that expertise to make sure we're getting all that water going in the right direction for you.
I love that your motto is not about building customers; it's about building relationships and keeping those long-term relationships. And I think one of the ways you do that is through the warranties that you offer to people. Tell people a little bit about your warranty.
Yeah, so anything we put up, whether it's siding, gutters, windows, deck, we're going to stand behind whatever we do for 10 years. We're going to be here for the long haul. Unfortunately, a lot of times in the construction industry, you can get a tail light warranty, last as long as you can see their truck. But we're going to be here, and we're going to be here for the long haul to make sure your home is protected and taken care of.
What are your deals? What kind of you have any special offers going on? What do you have to entice people to come give you a call and check you out?
Yeah, so we got a couple incentives going right now. One, you call us, have us come out, give you an estimate. We've got a free Minky blanket just for letting us come out, give you an estimate. Also, right now to end the year, we're running a little special. We're going to give you an extra 5% off to help get these projects done and get you taken care of, so you guys can avoid any price increases going into next year.
So call them now, get it done, get that Minky blanket, get that 5% off. It's RGS Exteriors, 801-280-3110, or go to rgsexteriors.com. Hope you have a great day, Aaron, and thank you very much.
Thanks, you too.
All right, we're going to move on here. NFL News of Notes is around the corner. We'll see how I did over the weekend on my picks, and some rather interesting events happened in the NFL this past weekend. I'd like to talk about. So stick around. This is the Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell here on ESPN 792.1 FM.
Nice job, dude.
Thanks, dude.
Dude. What's up? I'm glad I caught you at the very end, but nice job with RJ's Exteriors. Always, boss. Always. That's what I do, baby. That's what I do. All right. Rock and roll. Put it back in here.
All righty, sports fans, welcome back. This is the Down and the Dirty. I'm Scott Mitchell, and it's time to get downer and dirtier. We like to do that. We like to get messy on the show. We just like to just give it to you raw, you know? No fluff, no BS. I really do. I just try to just give you my opinion about things. And I'm okay if you don't like it. I really am. I love the debate. Yeah, I'll debate you. Come on over. I'll debate you. In a very kind and respectful way, though. Speaking of kindness and respect, former NFL Commissioner Paul Tagliabue died at the age of 84. So, our condolences to Paul's family, and he was really he was kind of my commissioner, you know. It's like it was my era. Pete Rozelle, like I just um Pete Rozelle is just a cool name for a commissioner. Rozelle, you know. Tagliabue. It's like I just remember when he was, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful here, but it was just not the same tone to it. But Paul Tagliabue he really was hitting the NFL when it was really hitting its stride. I think he took it into a kind of an era where you know the popularity I think just boomed, you know, because it was kind of that late 1980s into the early 2000s, and it was and he was a big part of labor peace, relationships between the teams and the players. Of course, the league expanded during his time, um, and when I got into the NFL, like I was disappointed. Like I'll just tell you, Martin, when I got off the bus and I went and saw the Miami Dolphins practice facility, I cried. I was like, okay, the weight room was better in my high school. This is like a roach infested, disgusting, something out of like the early 1970s that they just didn't care to remodel and didn't really care about anything. And I was just like, wow, this is professional football, and it was massively disappointing. And then it all kind of at that point they said we have to, because free agency came in with Paul Tagliabue, and that was a big boost to players, and it also required the ownership to step up its game with facilities and stadiums, and but then the league just got more and more popular through Paul Tagliabue, and he really I think what was great about him to me um is that he was not bigger than the game. Like he really understood what made the game great, and he really tried to focus on um not being the story. And I think he did a tremendous job with that. And there were some big things that happened. I mean, 9/11 happened. Hurricane Katrina was a big deal. Of course, that's right when the Saints won the Super Bowl shortly after that. I mean, there were just some very timely things that happened. And there were things that, it's not all, roses and all that stuff, but the concussion thing was kind of in the middle of there were other things, but he was a big part of the NFL moving forward in a significant direction. So he was my commissioner, and I thought he did a tremendous job. Okay, let's get into the picks. So, of course, I've been picking NFL games, and we do it on Fridays, and I've been doing well. Like I'm not even gonna lie, I'm surprising myself a little bit. And this is a little bit of a challenge because you could almost argue that picking NFL games is a little bit like herding cats because they just don't all want to do what you want them to do. And you get kind of frustrated when some folks kind of buck the trend and decide to go out and play well and win a freaking game. Part of it is what is so intriguing about the NFL. I mean, who'd have thunk that the Miami Dolphins were going to put one on the Buffalo Bills? I mean, I when I say that, I say it because I know it happens, and I really have to prepare for this every week. So I had 4 losses this last week. I think I might have had 4 last week as well. Of course, I've picked the Packers over the Eagles at home on Monday night. We'll see how that goes. And so right now I'm at 55-15 on the season. And if you're figuring out percentages, it's 78%. So more than 3 out of 4 games I'm getting right. We're just above that. I think that's Hall of Fame worthy. If you're winning at a 78% clip for your career, it's pretty good. I mean, if you think about the season, you would be 12-4 every year is about what you would be as a coach. So I guess I'm just good at picking things. But not my nose. I don't pick my nose. You know what they say about picking, don't you, Martin?
I do now. What do they say?
Well, you can pick your friends and you can pick your nose, but you can't pick your friend's nose. So just live by that advice right there. And you'll have a lot of friends and not a lot of enemies.
With this winning percentage, are you basically saying you're the Bill Belichick of NFL picks? Like you're just so good you can't miss?
I'm feeling that confident right now. And you know what happens? Pride happens before the fall, so I'll
That's
probably
very true.
crash off at the end of the world here. But right now, hey, I'm talking smack. But what happened to the freaking and serious like Tampa Bay, like New England must be for real. Like
They have
they
to
must
be.
because they're leading their division. They go on the road and beat a very good Tampa Bay team and look pretty good doing it. And of course, the Saints beat Carolina. See, those are the hard games because the Saints they're not good, but Carolina isn't really great either. Same thing with the Jets and Cleveland. It's almost a toss up. I think you could really pick. Yeah, I mean, I thought I would go. I thought I wouldn't have a loss this week. When I made those picks last week, I was like, no, I'm not going to lose a game this week. And lo and behold, speaking of picking things, Dan Campbell decided he picked himself to take over play calling duties. And this is really interesting to me. As I read this and as I thought through it, one, I think it'd be hard to be a head football coach. And in the sense that you really have to pick the right guy and the right guys as coaches. And I think managing coaches is as big a challenge for a head football coach than it is managing players. He did very well with his Aaron Glenn pick, and he did very well with his Ben Johnson pick. And of course, people recognize that, and now he has this John Morton, who he really likes. And if you hear his comments, it's like the proverbial kiss of death. You know, it's just horrible because he goes, John has just been a true professional and really helped me out this week. And he's all about the team. And John Morton sitting there going, man, I'm about my job. Like, what am I supposed to say in this situation? Like, I can't believe you took the play calling duties away from, and I didn't know that the Lions were, I guess, struggling that poorly. Ooh. So here's the challenge of it, right? And it's a small world in coaching. So all of a sudden you get known as the coach that goes, I'll yank your duties. I'll yank your duties from you, and you won't be calling plays at all. So if you want to come and coach here, you're going to come and coach under that potential threat. And I don't know that like good coaches are going to want to do that. Like, to me, it feels a little bit of a desperation move. Now maybe Dan Campbell goes, look, this guy's toast at the end of the year. So I'm going to try to smooth the waters right now. And maybe he talked to John Morton and just said, look, I'm going to fire you, but I'm not going to fire you. So if you handle this well, you'll get another job and you'll be fine. But for right now, like we're, and coaches do that. I mean, they're coaches, position coaches get fired a lot. Coordinators, not so much during the season. And in my mind, it's like, well, I think it's on you because you hired the guy. And if you hired the guy and if you really did your due diligence and if you hire right, you shouldn't be having to fire coaches. And the offense hasn't stunk. Now they put up 44 points. And Jared Goff was like, this is he was very impressed with John Morton, and he says things weren't really a whole lot different as far as the preparation goes and just kind of the flow of the game. I still think, though, I think it would be brutally hard unless you had a really good coordinator on the opposite side of the ball. So if you're a head coach, I just think it'd be really hard to call plays and be a head coach. Or vice versa, because you're like, when you're not on offense, you're still on offense. But when you're the head coach, when you're not on offense, you're on defense. And you're on special teams in between the two. And you're constantly observing and getting a sense for the game and where it's heading and what's happening. And I think it would be almost impossible, especially in the NFL, to be able to go, yeah, I'm going to call the plays. Now Coach Shula would call plays. I mean, calling plays at Miami Dolphins was fascinating anyways, because it was like, in fact, there's a little bit of history there, at least at that time. So Gary Stevens was our offensive coordinator, and he didn't do anything. He was quarterback coach. And he was with Jimmy Johnson at Miami. And David Shula was at the Cowboys with Jimmy Johnson. And Jimmy Johnson wanted to hire Gary Stevens because he was with it, because he took all his Miami guys with him to Dallas. And Shula wouldn't let him go. And then he hired David Shula, Jimmy did, and then fired him. And then Shula was like, now you're definitely not getting Gary Stevens. And so then he elevated him to a higher position. And so Gary Stevens, and it was all just to kind of thumb his nose at Jimmy Johnson. Regardless, Shula tried to call, and I don't think you can do it. I mean, maybe in the short term for a brief moment, but Dan Campbell seems like a desperation move to be calling plays. Now, I'm sure he'll get a new coordinator, but we'll see what happens. So can you tell me about the guy that punched the player?
Yeah, sir. So
Deron Payne.
Yeah, Deron Payne. So Detroit finished the drive. Deron Payne is staring down Amon-Ra St. Brown. St. Brown walks over to him, and Payne just throws a right hook like it wasn't a boxing match. And then Payne got ejected and thrown out right at that very moment, and is now suspended for a game.
I wonder what he said to him.
I don't know.
I mean,
that's the question.
Do they have a personal history? Does it, it must have been a very serious your mama joke,
seriously,
or statement, because like, I just don't ever understand throwing a punch at someone in a football game who has all this padding on. Like, it almost feels like to me that it would be more damaging to the one doing the punch. And it clearly is. I mean, getting suspended and all that stuff. I just think it's stupid. All right, well, let's take a break. But before we do, Utah took a break last week, but they're back in action. And you know how busy traffic is when the Ute games are going on. So please drive with patience and be alert to other drivers. But if you are injured in an accident, and I pray that you're not, the advocates have your back. Available 24/7, 365. Advocates, award winning injury attorneys. Simply win. If another driver's negligence leaves you injured with medical bills that you can't pay, you need to call the injury attorneys at the advocates. No cost consultations. You'll never pay a dime out of pocket while the advocates work on recovering the compensation you deserve. They also help out in motorcycle accidents, injured while you're jogging, dog bites. So please drive with extra caution when dropping the kids off at school. Ute fans, you didn't deserve to be in an accident, but you do deserve an advocate. We'll return. Hey, someone's trying to get their money. We'll tell you who when the Down and Dirty returns here on ESPN's 792.1 FM.
All right, got breaking news. I said we got breaking news. Brian Daboll has been fired as the Giants coach. I'm watching Pat McAfee and Adam Schefter, who just broke the news, is talking about it right now. Weight Vision is the last one we got. That is it. We will have to be out. We got 7.5 minutes left of airtime.
So I'll do Weight Vision first. So what time do we have to be
10:56. So between 55 and 56. Yeah. So make it 55 would be better. So 10:55, we'll play the break, and then no, there is a Kyle Whittingham press conference. That's why I'm getting you out at 10:55. Yeah. Yep, 10:55 is the right number. Nope, I won't. I'll be quiet as a mouse. I will scurry about. You won't hear me at all. Yeah. I got you.
We have some breaking news. This is the Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell here on ESPN 792.1 FM. Martin, tell me what is going on in the world of sports that we need to know about.
Yeah, well, the Giants are going to be looking for their next head coach. This will be their fourth head coach they're looking for since Tom Coughlin. Brian Daboll is out as the New York Giants head coach this morning.
Wow. That's shocker to me. It's a shocker because I think they really have something in Jackson Dart. And Brian Daboll has a relationship. The folks there, and I hate to see that happen because it could be detrimental to a young quarterback. But maybe it's a really good thing. We'll see. And the Giants are kind of conservative. Like they're not an organization who likes to kind of do quick and rash and unstable things. Yeah. Um, I'm trying to think of like who. I think coaching situations in the NFL are weird, anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I think being a coach is really a head coach is really there's an art to it, and it's really moving a lot of pieces, and they're not all football related. It's about an organization, it's about a fan base, it's about players, it's about coaches. You're really trying to manage a lot, and I think it really takes a certain person to be able to do all that and to do it well.
The iron
Uh,
ruling fist days of Chuck Nolan and Don Shula are not what coaching is like today anymore.
Yeah, no, right. That's I mean, I mean the money, the players, the power of the play. It's yeah, it's a challenging thing, and for whatever reason, there's good ones and bad ones, and you just don't ever know when those good ones are going to show up and when when they're not. And yeah, it's a fascinatingly tricky thing to be coach. Speaking of coaches, Brian Kelly apparently is he wants all his money. He wants to what's the deal? They want to say, "Yeah, we're going to give you 25 million of the 54
Yeah,
million."
so Scott
Uh
Woodward, the former AD for LSU, wanted to give Brian Kelly $25 million and say, "Here, pay you half of it, and we don't have to pay you the rest if you take another job." And his lawyer said no to that. And then the new interim AD came in for LSU and said, "How about we pay you $30 million? There's no hook on if you get hired by a new team at all." But we're just going to pay you $30 million to save ourselves $24 million. And his lawyers again went back and said, no, the $54 million buyout has to be honored and you have to pay that money out. So there's a little bit of a litigation situation with Brian Kelly getting all of his money.
So he's going to be paid $54 million in monthly payments through the year 2031. That's minus any future salary he receives in coaching.
Yep.
Wow. So I wonder if these coaches, because I was watching this thing on Ed Orgeron, who was before him, and I'm sad that Ed Orgeron is not coaching. I really am. I just he's a good dude, and he's got this great personality and his great voice and hey, give me a ham sandwich or get some coleslaws and we can get to yeah. You don't understand anything he's saying because I didn't even understand what I said, but it sounds funny and it sounds good. And it's sad that he's not coaching, but it's like, you get these coaches. It's almost you're de-incentivized to go and find a new coaching job. It's like, why would I do this? I can just sit here and enjoy my life and enjoy things and not coach again.
Gotta go.
Crazy. Hey, go check out my people at Weight Vision. They're amazing. They'll change your eyes. They changed mine. I can see like nobody's business. They're right off of Thanksgiving Point, UCCU building right there off the freeway. Go check them out. Dr. Waite is incredible. Fellowship, board certified in refractive lens surgery. He's the best in the world. That's what I had. It'll change your life. Waitevision.com, WAITE vision.com. Well, folks, our time is up. Deshaun O'Connell show's next. I believe we're going to hear from Coach Whittingham and his press conference. This has been the Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell here on ESPN 792.1 FM. Until then, we'll see you then.
All right, Scott. Have a good day. I'll just replay it. We'll be fine. Yeah, you good, brother. Have a good morning. Later. Bye.